then I have picked up a few case studies from the previous year's question papers, and time permitting, we'll take up those also. I think the most of you or some of you had mentioned to me about this hijab controversy that's going on, and could there be a question? Now, I don't think there would be a question directly on that, but it would be worthwhile discussing that case because it's a very sensitive case. And if not exactly the same, a similar type of questions would be asked. Whether it would be asked in 22 or 23, I can't say, but this sort of a question will be asked. And this being a very sensitive nature of case study, if you all can understand and appreciate the nuances of this, you will be able to pick up many more case studies. So this case study was mentioned to me by two people. One was Prashant Goel and the other was Sohail. Prashant is here. Prashant is here. Sohail, are you here? No, this is Sohail, are you there? You know, this is not done. You know, you raise an issue and then you are not here. I will have no option but to remove that person from the group. And God bless him that you raise a question and then you are not around. My request to all of you as we move along is that be serious about whatever you do, whatever. You decide what you want to do in life. You can't take civil services casually because it's a very tough competition. You're wasting your time, my time, and your parents' money on all that. So you take a call whether you want to seriously appear for the civil service and do it sincerely, not in the casual manner that you write something and then you forget about it. My experience in the past few years tells me that such people will never make it. They will waste their own time and my time also. So Sohail, if you're there, please answer. If you're not there, then all the best and God bless you. And I would request those of you who can open your videos, please open your videos because we'll have a discussion. So Prashant, can you briefly outline the case study before we start discussion? Because as I said earlier, it's a very, very sensitive, important case study. If you understand, some of you understand that, you will have understood a lot many other things. So you outline the case that you have in mind, and then we will identify issues and then we'll answer them.
Okay, sir. Sir, I just will put into words as I mentioned it, the case. So you are the district administrator of the district where communal tensions are generally high. Recently, some girls in the schools under your administration started wearing hijab to their school with their school dress. The principal of the school refrained the girls from entering the school on the ground of violation of code of dress. The situation turned serious with other religion people also practicing their religion, and the situation also get media coverage with many other people who could make the unhealthy opportunities out of it. Now the two questions are, was the action of the principal right, and what will be your step to settle the issues amicably? Sorry, you're not audible.
So let me add a bit. Okay, we will look at it from two perspectives. Suppose you are the principal of the school. How would you go about it? And suppose you are the subdivisional officer or the subdivisional magistrate or a district magistrate. Meaning thereby, if you are from the administration side and you are principal. Now, who's prepared to take it on? Because I'll tell you about my view subsequently. My only warning to all of you is, don't go by your personal perception on the issue. Don't go by your likes and dislikes.
Sir,
on the one hand, you are a principal. How would you approach this issue? On the other hand, you are in the district administration. And I would like to seek your response on this particular issue. Prashant, since you've raised these issues, I think you hold on. We'll come back to you later on. I think Damini has raised her hand. Let her respond to it first. Yes, Damini. And go about it in a logical manner, not in a passionate manner. You know, logical. What are the issues? How would you handle them? Go ahead.
Yes, sir. First, from the perspective of the principal, when girls turn up to the school or college wearing a hijab, I make it clear to them that wearing a hijab is currently banned as per the government orders. But I would grant them another day's time, telling them, okay, since you've already turned up to the school or college now, you can attend today's class, but issue them a strict warning, but that they cannot do this further until any other action has been taken by the government. And this is all that I can do from the position that I am in currently, and I will have to follow the government orders. And coming to the perspective from the district administration.
Damini, just hold on. Let's discuss the principal's perspective first.
Yes.
Now, in the case study that Prashant told me, he did not mention that is a government order for not allowing wear hijab. You remember? Now, if you assume something which is not there in the case study, now I'm talking strictly in terms of how do you approach an answer to a case study. So don't assume anything. In fact, if I were you, I would raise these questions first. I would first raise the question, is there a government order to ban hijab? Is there a rule to ban hijab? Is there a directive even as a principle? He says that it is in a case study. But if it is there in the case study, then you have to assume that it's a rule. But in the existing set of circumstances, there is no such directive. It came later on. So now the question is, let me again explain to you how you approach such questions. You know, for me, case studies are not very important. For me, most important for all of you is, how do you approach a case study? So in approaching a case study, if I were you, I would first raise questions and then answer them. That's the case study. So what are the questions that I'll raise? First, with regard to the legal or the rule position. Is there a rule? That is, rule created by government, or is there a regulation of the school? Because if the answer to either of them is in the affirmative, then the debate ends actually from legal point of view, that there is a provision that you should not be wearing a hijab, and hence if you come wearing a hijab, it is violation of the either regulation of the class or of the school. The debate ends. The problem arises when there is no such provision either in the rule or in the class, and then it is imposed that you can't come wearing a hijab. So until you raise these valid questions in the beginning, you will go, you'll meander. You'll start using your emotions to do it. Why am I telling you all of this? Please listen to this very carefully. Ethics has two parts. One is the legal part. That is the codified part of ethics. Now there, someone raised this issue, and unfortunately Sohail is not here because he raised this issue, that your personal view about it, and if it is contrary to the legal view. Now, as an officer of the government, whether as a principal or an administrator, you will have to put your personal views in the dustbin. Under no set of circumstances will you violate a rule. That has to be very clear. In your case study, you must, that is why I raised this question, that if there is a provision that hijab shall not be worn, then there is no question of raising any other issue. But I don't think that is the case here, because I don't think Prashant mentions the case correctly. What he says is correct in the sense, if that is the case study, then it is not a case study. Case study is when there is no such rule at this point in time, either by the government or by the school. And suddenly the school administration decides, or the principal decides, that he will not allow hijab wearing girls. That is where the problem arises. The problem will not arise. I mean, all of us have gone to the school. If the school has a clear-cut provision that you will not wear a bindi, so that's it. Some schools have this provision that children can't have nail polish on their nails. Okay, so that's a provision. That's the rule, uniformly applicable. Now, in this particular case, as I said, the first question to be raised is whether there is a rule. If there is a rule, then ethics gets reduced to those rules. You can't violate the rules. But Damini, you approach the issue correctly. See, you are looking, see, again, all of you should listen to this again carefully, that she looks at the positive side of finding solution to a problem by allowing the girls to come on that particular day. Now, I don't know whether it is correct to allow violation of your rule on even one day. Because violation of a rule is a violation. And if you violate that rule on one day, then you throw your doors open for violation. So that is why there is a distinction between the legal or codified ethics and non-codified ethics. In non-codified ethics, you have that flexibility. In codified ethics, which is law or rule, you have no. You understood that, Damini?
Yes, sir. Got it.
I'll further develop it later on, but I'm sticking it to right now. I'm not going into the administration's response to it. I'll come to that later on.
Sure, sir.
Kumar Abhishek, you've raised your hand. What do you want to say?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, I wanted to say that means the thing that is being made issue of means if there is a uniform code for the test, so that would apply to all the students, be it the Sikhs or even the teachers that are coming to the college, who are Hindus also. So wearing, for example, the bindis or the display of that Mang Tika and all that. So that also is the display of religious symbols. So suppose the student is coming wearing turban. So isn't that also the display of religious symbol?
Abhishek,
Yes,
you
sir.
have to, and again, all of you should listen to these responses carefully. When you answer a question, again, I'm not debating the issue right now. Please try and understand the difference between debating an issue, because he's asking me a question to debate an issue. No, I'm only helping you how to answer if such a question comes in the class. You can't question a question, no? When I say you question, you are attempting to answer that question. You can't throw an open question like whether turban should be allowed or not. Who will answer that question? Don't raise questions which you can't answer. You can't be asking somebody else. When I said you raise questions in the beginning, it is with a view to answering those questions yourself. So I'm not debating here whether it's right, wrong, or whatever. No. So if we'll have to look at the rule provision, and all of you have been to the school, I've been to the school and colleges, the rules are by and large very clear on what to wear, what not to wear. If the rule position is that turban should not be worn, it should not be worn, as simple as that. Let somebody else decide whether it's right or wrong. The principle is nobody to decide, because it is decided by the administration of the school or college that turban will not be worn, period.
But then again, the issue of that essential religious practices comes, that whatever they are doing
Abhishek,
is a part. Yes, sir.
Abhishek, you are discussing it as a debate. I can enter into that debate. See, again, while answering a question, you don't have to fly this, that, everything. You have to go step by step. And when I was responding to Prashant and Damini, I was basically mentioning the first question is whether there is a rule or not. Now, you are in no business to question the relevance, efficacy, necessity of that rule. If there is a rule, so be it, it has to be obeyed. I will come to this aspect that if there is, as Dhamini tried to address that issue, that how do you get the rules to be obeyed by following a particular practice which will enable people to obey that rule. To that extent, I can discuss. But first question is whether, and this will apply to other case studies that I've read the other year's question paper, there is no compromise on the rule part. So first, you should look at whether there is a rule or not. Okay. Now, suppose in your personal view, and that could be a personal view, which is contrary to a rule. Because Sohail had raised this issue. Now, as an administrator, your personal views don't matter.
Yes.
If they violate a rule, a specific rule, then you can't do it. You either get the rule changed. No, some of you that would have read my book, Ethical Dilemmas of a Civil Servant. Throughout my 38 years of career, I never violated an express rule of law. And that's why I survived today. But a law can be interpreted in manner, that is where ethics comes in. That is where your personal value system. Whether you can interpret a law, whether you can look at the gray area. And in this particular instance, we'll come to those gray areas where your wisdom or your ethical value system can have a play. Okay, we'll come to the variant of it. Right now, I'm sticking on to this. Sharmila, you have a point here.
Good evening, sir. Sir, I had two questions pertaining to what we just discussed. The one of them was mentioned by the other person, like what if the rules are not in conformity with the rule of the law, which is the constitution, that is talking about essential religious practices. So second thing, sir, we are talking about two parts of ethics, right? Codified part, which is the laws, and the second part is our personal ethics. Sir, like you already mentioned, how do we handle a conflict wherein our personal ethics are in conflict with the law, like because ethics changes from time to time, they are dynamic, but our laws are pretty much codified and static. So how are we going to handle it when there is a conflict between both of them?
Okay, very good, Sharmila. You've raised two very pertinent questions, and all of you should listen to this very carefully. Now, in your interpretation, you feel that a particular regulation is violative of the constitutional provision. Okay. Any regulation cannot be deemed to be violative of constitutional provision until and unless decided by law, which is the courts. So if you are a part of a certain system and that system says that this has to be done, until unless you can prove that it is constitutionally wrong, because constitution has enormous amount of gray areas, whether it is violative of the freedom of religion or not, whether you should be deciding it. My personal view is, here I am giving you a personal view, I will not decide about it. Until unless there is a clear interpretation of law which says that this is wrong, your regulation is wrong. So you will assume that those regulations are correct till such time it is established that they are wrong. Otherwise, you run into problems. Now, this will answer your second question. If your personal ethics or societal ethics are contrary to a provision of your college, what will you do? So what will I do? Let me share with you what I'll do. If, say, for example, I'm a teacher in a school and my principal has a provision that this should be done. There's a provision of the law. Then, and I'll draw a parallel in government how I did. There were certain provisions in the government which I didn't agree with. Now, I cannot violate those provisions. But if I have the communication skills and capability, I'll convince the people to change that rule. Till that time, I will abide by that. But I have done it. If you read my book, there are a number of cases where I got the concerned regulation interpreted in a manner that I wanted it to be interpreted. But till such time you do that, you cannot take the risk. See, when you become a part of a system, then you have to go by the regulations of that system. Now, let's see, say for example, I'm taking a very extreme example. Suppose you join a mafia gang. Okay, I'm taking a very extreme example. And the job of mafia is to kill. Now, killing is directly violative of law. There is no interpretation to be required here. Then what you will do is get out of the system. Now, here again, in a college or in a school, I have two options. Either to go by the law or to convince the management to change the law. I have three options. And the third, if I totally disagree, I get out of the college. But without getting it changed to do contrary to what is there is not done because there is a clear provision. Does that answer your question, Sharmila?
Sir, like Damini mentioned, right, I would allow the students to the class today, and tomorrow I'll issue a strict warning to them. Rather than that, I would take a consultative approach wherein I'll be asking the students what their opinion is, because as an administrator, I have that in my capability to take the voice of these students if something they feel is wrong to the higher management. So what I would do is I would try communicating the students have this problem to the higher management. Even though I personally feel it is right or wrong, I should address the grievance that the students have is what I feel. So
wonderful, wonderful. I'm so glad you see, internalize what you said just now, internalize it. If you approach issues in this manner, the examiner will feel that here is a person who thinks positively. We normally in social media acquire extreme postures, yes and no. We start thinking in binaries. You are looking at a possible solution. It may still not come true. What the examiner is looking at is not whether you solve the problem. What they are looking at as your approach to the problem. Many problems in the country, even the best of people don't have an answer. But they would like people around them who have an approach to finding solutions to the problem. There is a mention here, somebody mentioned in the code box, I don't know who said, take stakeholders into consideration. Excellent. Remember this term, stakeholders. Keep using this phrase while you answer the question. That will give you damn good marks, I can tell you. Why? Because as Sharmila rightly pointed out, she's going to talk to people. Nothing better than talking. You can still not agree with them. But one way of solving the problem is engaging with the stakeholders. And again, I'm now slightly digressing. My personal experience tells me almost always I found solutions engaging. Most difficult situations I came through, I found solutions by engaging with these stakeholders. And that is why engagement with the stakeholders becomes important. So while answering this question, after having looked at the legal part of it, then you will go step ahead. There are 2-3 ways in going about. One, you will try and convince the girls with hijab that this is not as per the rules of the college. And I will be constrained not to allow you to come in because it's against the rules. But I assure you that I'll take it up with the powers that be, and bear with me till such time it's not in the rule. I can't permit you to come into the college, but I can assure you that I will take it up with the administration and see if this could be permitted. So you are gaining confidence. You are gaining confidence of the people. Most of the problems don't get solved by law. They are solved through engagement. And if you can convey this message in your answer, then they will see, he will not violate the law, but the guy is still trying to find a solution. The law itself may be a problem. I mean, as I think Dhamini asked me if it is violative of the constitution. Whether I know it is violative or not, but you have this feeling this is wrong. So how do I approach it? I will talk to the stakeholders. Stakeholders don't really necessarily mean only the girls that are coming to this. Stakeholders also mean the management, the teachers. Everyone is stakeholder there. So you have to engage with them. I'll discuss with the teachers, ye problem aayi hai. How do we go about it? You will get some suggestion. Okay. Someone else had his hand up. Sahil.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. Sir, my response was also on the lines of what the discussion has been gone to. I had my answer as there will be 2 types of responses. First will be the immediate response, and another will be the long-term response. For the immediate response, I thought that as there can be a situation of a possible law and order violation, and safety of students can be because as the case in the case study it was mentioned that there are the instances of communal tension as well. So my first priority would be to ensure the safety of the students. So first of all that, and second of all, I will also take if there are some teachers of the same religion of which, like the Muslim, if there are some Muslim teachers, I'll try to involve them in that process to talk to girls rather than me directly talking to them. I'll involve them and then we'll sit together and then convince them all the things that you just said. As a long-term, yes, sir.
Excellent, Sahil. I'm interrupting you here because I really find, again, I'm even at the cost of repeating, I'm telling you, in a case study, the examiner is not looking at a solution to a problem. Okay. He's looking at how you're approaching a problem. And I'm glad both Sharmila and Sahil have approached it in a manner to find a solution to the problem without violating the law. So no matter how big a Naxalite you are, you cannot be a Naxalite in the administration or writing an answer. There you have to abide by law. But abiding by law does not mean that you're not looking at the way forward. So assuming that the college has already provisions for not allowing hijab in the class, so you can't allow them inside. But you have an open mind and you are conveying this to girls who are coming with hijab and taking it up with the administration. It may still not solve the problem. They may still say that I will come in hijab, and your administration may still say we won't allow hijab, but you can't do much about it. Then you can take comfort from the fact that you have done. This is what the examiner, or for that matter, as an administrator, I'd look at in an officer. That whether he has a positive frame of mind of finding solutions to the problem without violating the law. I want all of you to get into this frame of mind. Unfortunately, all our social media is, spitting so much venom that they don't allow anybody to get in a frame mind of resolution. They're only pushing everyone into a conflict. That's the problem. Because it is benefiting some people in the political frame, and they feel that conflict will serve their purpose. It won't serve your purpose. For you, you cannot look at as conflict as a solution to problems. You will have to look at reconciliation as a solution to problems. I'm hammering this in your minds because when we discuss other case studies, similar sort of situations will arise. Soumya, you wanted to say something? But
Yes,
Sahil,
sir.
very good.
Good
Yes.
evening, sir. So, apart from answering the question, another doubt that I had was that while there is this row of not allowing girls wearing hijab in the campus, there's another counterforce in terms of people wearing saffron neck turbans and basically showing some sort of an rage towards people who are wearing the hijab. So, as an administrator, then how do we tackle the other half of the whole situation?
Well said, Soumya. So far, we have discussed what school administration. When we come to administration, we'll come to your question. I'll come to that. It's a very valid point you've raised. So far, I had split it into two parts. One, if you are school principal or school teacher, how will you handle it?
Yes, sir.
Second would be if you're an administrator, how you'll handle it. We'll come to that. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Right. Himanshu, you have a point?
Yes, I agree with what Sharmila said, that we need to engage the stakeholders. But sir, when we engage the stakeholders, for example, in this case, who could be the stakeholders, we need to think. For example, the students, their parents, the school administration, and if there is some law and order problem, then there could be the administration of the city or in which the school is. Now, as a principal, the approach should be that we should also look at the pros and cons of every step. For example, if I be rigid and say that okay, from visa, then who are the would be disappointed with it? What could be their reaction? And what could be the negative consequences of that? Similarly, if I say that okay, I am going to allow the hijab, but then is it breaking the rule of the school, and will there be a greater administration problem, because rules are to be followed by, as you said, that rules are made to be followed. So what could be the negative consequence of that and positive consequences of that? And then we should choose that mode of action that has the minimum negative consequence and maximum positive consequence. Because it's just a general approach, I'm saying.
No, when you started, I totally agreed with you that you have to look at the pros and cons. But sometimes it's very difficult to give marks. This is 10, this is 8, this is 7, and hence you'll do that. It doesn't work that way. But as a general statement, it is fine. You have to look at the pros and cons of every decision, and that's it. But as I keep saying, that approach part, you're not determining the marks finally. You're determining the approach to finding the solutions. So now let me come to the administration part, which Soumya raised. And since we've discussed the principles part, now we'll come to the administration part. What is the administration looking at? Now, there again, we'll ask the question, what is the law? Does any law prohibit wearing of hijab? It may be the rule of a school, which is not a law outside the school. Or then as an administrator, I'll see, and there I have the authority to see, whether what the school administration is provided is as per the law. And that is when you may look into the constitutional issue, because as an administrator, I have access to lawyers and legal opinion and DGC to find out whether it is legal or not. So I look at the legality of that rule first. Now, if there is a law that you can't wear a hijab, then even I am bound by it. But as an administrator, I am not bound by the rules of the school. And hence, as an administrator, I'll examine whether that rule is as per the law or constitution. No, I'm assuming. Suppose it is as per the law. There is nothing in the law that bans that. Okay. Then I will sit with the college administration and see how the issue could be resolved in the same manner as we discussed earlier, talking to stakeholders. That is one part of it. The second part of it is, if someone is stopping these girls from wearing hijab outside the college, then I should take action against those people who are stopping them, because nowhere in the country there's no law which stops you wearing hijab. You know, if you look at, I mean, again, I'm digressing a bit because I also interact a lot on the Twitter. You know, I had tweeted that there were certain boys who was harassing a particular girl. And some of the response on the Twitter shocked me. Why? It shocked me because they don't understand the difference between what is happening in the school and outside the school. And the question that they raised was, when it is not allowed in the school, why were they wearing hijab? So this question can be raised while going into the school. But outside the school, this question does not arise. And no one has a business to harass anybody else. More so girls. So we, as while answering the question as administrator, must clearly understand where do we stand. And that's why I split them into two: action inside the school, action outside the school. As an administrator, then I'll say what is the provision of law. And if anybody is violating that provision of law, I will take them to task, conveying a message that anyone taking law in his own hands shall be dealt with according to the law. Do you understand this? However, I will also engage with the stakeholders as an administrator. What will I do? I'll talk to those students who are wearing those scarves and stop them, trying to persuade them. If they don't do that, put them behind the bars. There are sufficient provisions for you to do that. Talk to their parents. So the stakeholder bit, I really liked it, whoever raised it, that we must engage with the stakeholders. But if there is a violation of law, go against it. So there is a case study in my book where during the Mandal Commission agitation, about 1,000 girls from various schools came and gherawed me as district magistrate. Now what do? Gherav is a crime. They can't gheraw a district magistrate. I could have taken action against them, but I didn't. So what I did was I engaged in a conversation. And through a conversation, I convinced them to go away. And then I called some of the parents, spoke to them, and the whole situation was diffused. Now, I did not violate any law, but I delayed my action a bit to engage with the stakeholders. You are getting this point. So violation of law does not mean immediate action. Depends on the nature of violation. If someone has committed a murder, then there's no negotiation. Ready, catch him and put him behind the bars. But if some response has come on account of some provocation or non-provocation, then probably you can engage with the stakeholders. As administrators, you are enjoined to do that. You don't jump into shooting everybody with the bullet. You should do that. Does that answer your question, Soumya?
Yes, sir, it does.
Now, you may have found answers to your question, but my suggestion to all of you is write out how you would respond to as an answer. First, raising the questions for principal, raising the questions for administrator, and the action point. And what, again, this keeps changing, so I don't catch the names. Yes, Himanshu had raised a pertinent point that you should look at pros and cons. These are phrases that will help you. Engagement with stakeholders, looking at pros and cons, evaluating the pros and cons, and then taking a decision. These phrases will help you articulate your answer better. Sramila, you have your hand up. Any issue on this?
Yes, sir. Sir, I wanted to add a point regarding how you are going to handle the students who are very violent with others. Sir, as they are young minds, they won't have that they won't have enough capacity to understand what is right and wrong. Like how you dealt with those girls who garrowed you, we can have a conversation with them. If we still want to punish them, we can engage them in community service so that they understand their responsibility towards the community, and also it helps them to it helps us to channelize their energy in a proper way.
Engaging them in community service is something which you can do on your own, but there's no law to do that.
Yes, sir.
So what I used to do with some of these young boys who were very energetic was to engage them in a cricket match every weekend.
Yes, sir.
So you can do it in your own way, but don't write as an answer. What I'm trying to say here is engage them. But if they violate a law, because see, to me, I don't know whether it's you all, harassing a girl is a very serious offense.
Yes, sir.
And that's why I'm shocked at some of the responses. People are confusing between what should be done in the school and what should be done outside. I couldn't care less. I would have put these guys behind the bars and then spoken, not before that. Because a message has to go that anyone who violates a law and harasses a girl, why? Because then harassment becomes a norm. If the message is that anyone who tries to harass such girls, action will be taken, others will not do it. Much of the problem in some of the states that I see is that immediate action is not taken, and hence people think that they can get away with murder. So that needs to be done. But the distinction between inside the school and outside school has to be understood very clearly. Okay. Now, last word to you, Prashant, before we switch on to the next case study.
Sir, I have written the complete answer as a district collector. So in brief, I can say it, sir.
Don't read it out, but tell the salient.
Sir, firstly, as the leader of the district, this calls for leadership and far-sightedness from a DC. So firstly, the DC should see that the law and order issued mentioned is law and order in this situation, and proactive steps should be taken so that there is no harassment, something like that. Secondly, he need to also care about the right of education of the girls, and he can provide with for 1 day or 2 days till the amicable solution comes. He can provide them with extra class or online education. And so thirdly, he should establish a peace committees with all the stakeholders in this process so that an amicable negotiation can be drawn at the end. So as a DC, I would do these 3 steps in this sequence.
So just think over it. There are, in finding solutions, there are negotiables, there are non-negotiables. And that's why I started with the question whether it violates a law or not. If it violates a law, no negotiable, non-negotiable.
It's a gray area, basically.
You have to implement the law as it stands. And then, you are right, engage in a dialogue with them and see what is the way forward, find solutions, find long-term solutions. Someone did mention about the short-term and the long-term implications of what you're doing. These terms will help you, short-term, long-term implications, pros and cons, engaging with the stakeholders. These are terms that you can use in your answer. Any other observation, question on this? Himanshu, you've raised your hand.
Sir, it also depends that, for example, hijab is mostly worn by the Muslim girls or girls from the Muslim community. So it also depends what's the percentage of girls in that school. For example, if there are so many girls coming from that community or in that region, then it becomes like it is a much bigger issue. And suppose if there are just 1-2 girls, then maybe it will not become such a law and order problem. So it also becomes it also look important to look at the demography of the district or the school.
I don't know whether you are responding as a principal or a district collector.
So in both from both perspectives, I'm thinking again, of the gravity of the situation.
We are entering into a debate again. Why? Because a right of an individual is as good as the right of 10 or 15 people. So in the case of harassment of a girl, only one girl was harassed. You can say, okay, one girl is being harassed, why bother about it? Let it happen. It's a small issue. But it could snowball into a very serious problem. So it's not a question of numbers. I would not suggest that you should go into numbers part. You should go into the legal part and the approach part. Numbers may or may not matter in a situation, but I think harassing a single girl is as big a crime as harassing, say, 15. So it's not a question of 1 or 2. It's a question of the perpetrator of crime, which were many. Impacted party may have been 1. So numbers are misleading. there is a small story. I'm narrating it for you all to understand. A girl was walking on the beach and she saw small turtles there. And many of them, since they had come out of the water, were dying because of the heat. So this girl started picking up turtle and started throwing back into the sea. And there were hundreds of turtles. And she was picking up one by one. So, and a man came to her and he, what are you doing? She says, I'm trying to save the lives of turtles. So he says, how does it matter? You will do 10, but there are hundreds of them. Then she picked up a turtle, picked it, threw it into the sea and said, it matters to him. The one that has gone back. So it's not a question of how many. It's a question of who. Because put yourself in the shoes of that girl. I'm shocked. I'm shocked when I see the Twitter on that. They would be having sisters and, friends. If that person is harassed, the case that happened in Delhi happened to a girl. It shook our sensibilities. It's not a question of one or two. Yes, you have to look at the law and order implications in the context of harmony. Again, if you read my book, Ethical Dilemmas, there was just one murder in the district. They wanted to take out a funeral procession. There was just one murder. So I could have said, hey, ek hi murder to hai, le jao, kya karo? Look at the implications. So it's not a question of number. It's a question of implication of what you do. So as an administrator, and I'm not talking as a principal, as an administrator. As a principal, you can take any other view, but as an administrator, no, you can't. You have to look at the implications of a single incident that could be devastating. Okay, right. So I think Namini, you still have a hand up. Want to say something?
Yes, sir, just a small mention. Even with respect to what happened in Bangalore, even if a girl is wearing a hijab inside the college and it is against the rules, the other students of the college have no right to enforce the rules. It is the duty of the principal or the administration to take it up. So the students who try to harass her had no right whatsoever to do that. And also given the fact that they themselves were wearing saffron shawls, which is also against the school uniform code, if there is such a code, which should not be violated by students.
Okay, as far as the first part is concerned, I totally agree with you. As far as the second part is concerned, it will depend on the nature of rule in the school. Suppose the rule says that you are not allowed hijab. Then you can wear those saffron. Purely from rule point of view, I will not say it. But if the rule says that anything beyond the uniform as prescribed by the school is not allowed, then they should be stopped. So you have to, in a school, you have to go by the rule. So you have to, that's why I said in the beginning, look at the rule first. What is the rule provision? And second, in this particular instance, I don't know whether I'm right or wrong, there was no rule banning hijab in this school. There may have been a dress code, but no banning. Then they would have to determine, the school will have to determine whether wearing a hijab violates the dress code or not. That's a question of interpretation. Because one could be ruled that hijab will not be permitted. Then of course, there's no question, can't be done from day one. But if there is a rule that nothing beyond what is prescribed is allowed, then whether it is hijab or those saffron cloths, everything should not be allowed. As simple as that. Okay.
Yes.
Right. I think we've spent more than 40 minutes on this, but I thought we should discuss this because if you understand the approach to a sensitive issue like this, you will be able to answer others also. Abhilaksh, are you there? Next is your case study. Abhilaksh had sent me a message and he doesn't seem to be around. He's probably sending me another message. Let me see if he's sending an email because I think he was very keen on discussing a case study today. And he in fact was suggesting another one.
Abhilaksh Verma is present.
Seemed to be an error on my side. You see, sir, meeting is frozen. Meeting, is it frozen? He's
No, sir, but Abhilaksh is in the meeting actually.
Abhilaksh is in the meeting.
I can see his name, yes.
Abhilaksh, are you there? Can you respond?
It's to refresh, I guess.
Let me see which Abhilaksh is there. Abhilaksh Verma is there. Anyway, let's hope he comes back. We'll take someone else's case. So we've done that. Shivani has not been able to come. she went to vote, so she has not been able to come. Rudrashis, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Rudrashis, please, you can narrate your case study and then we can discuss.
Yes, sir. So my case study states that you are the superintendent of police in the district where instances of honor killing are rampant. One day you receive a phone call from a girl informing you of the potential threat to her and her partner's life from her family, as she has just decided to marry a boy belonging to a lower caste. Moreover, the local police station is not filling the FIR or granting them protection. You ask her to visit your office, but she demands police protection to come out from the hideout as her father's goons are chasing her. On further inquiry, you come to know that the girl is the daughter of one of the most powerful minister of the state, and both girl and boy are legally eligible to get married. The family is also concerned about the family prestige due to lower caste of the boy and also of the financial stability of marriage, as they both are unemployed. You are under extreme political pressure to charge the boy of kidnapping the girl or else face consequences. In such circumstances, point out the ethical dilemma faced by you and options available to you. Also chalk out the course of action you would prefer to follow.
So, thank you, Rudrashis. So the first thing in all such questions would be to outline the options. You're getting this point? Most of the case studies first outline the options because they would be the dilemmas, which, just say in your preliminary examination, you'll have to tick a box. So you have these options, but unlike the preliminary test where you can pick up anything, here you have to explain why you are taking one and not taking the other. So I'm telling you this just to enable you to answer what Rudrashis has said just now. Okay, so here is a case study. If I understood it correctly, there is a pressure on the superintendent of police to take action. Okay, against the boy. Is that right, Rudrashis?
Yes,
Against
sir.
the boy.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So will somebody help me answer this? Attend this? Anyone? I have Aishwarya. Good. I'm so glad. Fresh faces I've seen. Yes, Aishwarya, go ahead.
Good evening, sir.
Good
So,
evening.
sir, as from the last case study, if you go by the rules, the the girl and boy, they are eligible to marry, and if they are demanding police protection, I think that should be given to them.
Just hold on, Aishwarya. I'm stopping you between because I don't want discussion to give me solutions straight away. I'm trying to help you all to write an answer to this question. And when you do that, you can't start by saying that is not. No, first you have to frame those issues or questions. So help me frame those questions, then we'll discuss those questions.
Okay,
Why I'm insisting on this is because I want you all to speak in the manner in which you are going to write. Debating is different from writing an answer. So until you clearly outline the questions or the issues involved in it, it will look very jumbled. You can't start by saying there is no law. So if I were you, I'll start by saying, what is the legal provision relating to it? And then answer that. Okay. So what are the questions or issues or options that you would like to list out in this? Because that will help you. Once you do that, the structuring of answer becomes very, very simple. And there are many of you who have qualified for the written exam this year and are there in the present discussion in the webinar today. My request to you is that if you can structure all your thoughts logically by raising logical questions, your approach to answering even in the mains exam for any paper would help. It's a question of how you present, and that's why I insist go logically one after the other. Yes, Aishwarya.
So, if we identify the stakeholders, the parties involved, we have the couple, we have the boy's family, we have the girl's family, and all of them have different issues. So their issues also come into the equation, and even the police. So, sir, what we'll have to see is whether their issues are legitimate or not.
No, first, Aishwarya, I'm unable to convey to you. First, identify the issues or the options. The question itself says, but even if it doesn't say question, then you have to give the issues or options. Because that's how you're going to discuss, no, one after the other. So what are the options available with the superintendent of police?
Okay, so first option that I would say is, sir, in my view, is that first reach out to the couple and act according to the law. And next, just he can take all the stakeholders into the case.
Aishwarya, would you like to first examine the legality of the issues? Because that's the first thing. I keep telling all of you that if something is not as per law, then your options get reduced dramatically. So here, there is, someone was answering, probably you yourself were answering, whether, since both are adults, I'm assuming, is my understanding correct?
It's mentioned in
No, sir, it's mentioned that the both of them are legally means legal to marry.
What the boy and the girl are doing is not illegal. So that has to be clearly outlined first.
Yes, yes.
Because if they are doing anything illegal, then the whole approach changes. Mind you, all of you, in most of the case studies, you'll have to understand the legality of the options first. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So we know what is the legal thing and the right thing here in this case. And now, sir, what the main issue is, sir, about what other people aspire from this, whatever this case study is. That is the family of the child, of the boy and girl, and the responsibility from the police. So this is, in my view, the main issues, and what should be done, and options, sir, is that if we go by the laws, sir, there is in no way that we should come under pressure about filing a false case of kidnapping. And as you said, sir, if you go by the law, and the law is very clear in this case, that whatever the girl and boy are demanding is legal. So our options are already reduced according to that. So, sir, to diffuse the situation, the best way, in my view, would be that we sit with the parents of both the boy and girl, engage them and explain the whole matter to them, and explain to them how what they want is illegal, and even if they're forced, despite warnings, how legal action can be taken against them, and police protection will be provided to the couple in whatever circumstance.
I'm okay with what you're saying. What I would rather start the question with is what has been asked in the question of identifying the various options available with the SP. That's the first thing that you're. What are the options available? Number one, not do anything. That's the first option. Second, if he has to do, what can you do? Prevent them from getting married, provide police protection. You have to identify those issues and then discuss them as to what are the options available, what are the best option available to him, and why others options are not good. Aditya Dev.
Yes, sir. So as an SP, I have got some options. The first one would be talking to the stakeholders or engaging the stakeholders. The second one would be the legal actions.
When you say options, right options. Option number one, talk to the stakeholders.
Okay,
option
sir.
Number two.
Okay,
you know why I'm insisting on all this. I mean, normally I wouldn't. That unless you write down the options, which is even if they don't ask you in the question, you should do that.
Yes, sir.
How will you discuss those options? You can't. आप सीधे ही LMNOP चले जा रहे हैं. ABCD तो लिखे जो उन्होंने पूछा है. They've asked to identify the options. See, again, structuring of an answer is very important. You may know the answer, but if you don't structure it logically in the manner in which it has been asked, you will get lesser marks than the person who does it logically. Okay? So in a competition, you should know. Now, I am picking up those who have not spoken earlier. So pardon my overlooking some of those that have raised their hands earlier. I see the hand of Shishir. Shishir, please go ahead.
Yeah. So the first option is, as an SP, I would, as a police, I would provide the protection to the couple. That's the first option. Second option is I would not provide the protection, fearing the political interference in my own career and all of that. Third option is, so these are only two options as of now I can think.
Okay, Manoj, would you like to add to these? Manoj, unmute yourself. Manoj AB. whatever.
Sorry, sir. Yes, sir. Sorry. Hello, sir.
Yes.
Identify or considering what is at stake for each of these stakeholders in this issue gives us with three options. One, the purely the option filled with legality where the couples are eligible to choose their own path ahead. The second one, which is not so legal or ethical in manner, that is siding with the minister to pursue his line of action. The third one is following the middle path where you are protecting the integrity, your own objectivity in the issue and addressing this issue with a fix for the longer term. It should not be a short term fix. Siding with the couple and like helping them choose their own path without engaging a conversation between the couple side as well as from the minister side would lead to other complications which are not so favorable in the future. And again, siding with the minister and pursuing action against the boy in this case would not be ethical or legal in any sorts of manner. So, unless and until both of them have been engaged in a conversation, I think either of these options, like the first two options, wouldn't yield any good. That is what I felt, sir.
Manoj, you are almost on the mark, but I would still again request all of you to look at how you approach answering this question. You first list out the options, which you said but you started commenting on the option from the beginning. No. 1, 2, 3. These are the options. That's what the question is. And then start discussing pros and cons of each of these. Structuring is very important. If you jump, if you start discussing right from the word go, then you'll have to discuss each one of them that way. But since they ask you what are the options, either what you have an option, you can, as you give the option, you can discuss its pros and cons. Or you list them out and then discuss pros and cons. But you can't mix the two. No? Okay. Tanish, Karure, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, sir. So basically, I've outlined three options here. So I'll start with first, ignoring the girl's complaint as it involves minister. So the merits will be, it will avoid any direct head-on collusion with the minister. The demerits will be, I will face a guilt of not helping the couple. Second option here is charging the boy of kidnapping. And the merits will be, it will ensure the minister will not go against I will not go against his wishes. But the demerits is I am allowing the stakeholders to get involved and take law into their hand. Thirdly, filling an FIR and ensure police protection to them, to the couple. The merits will be following legality, then ensuring safety of the couple that has serious threats to their lives. The demerits will be, it will lead to lead to a lot of challenges for me, as it involves political stakeholders. Second, it may lead to transfer. So that is what I wanted to add.
So I think this is how an answer has to be approached. But you have to write the conclusion para. You have just decided merits and demerits. You have to conclude in what is. So you've approached the answer very correctly. I think you've defined the merits and demerits very clearly. What would you do?
So I think the legality is much more clear here, that the couple is already legally perfectly all right in the legal terms, that they are eligible to get married. First of all, I'll ensure that their rights are protected. First of all, their protection should be given to them. Secondly, the stakeholders should be involved in order to have a talks, so that the problem should not it should not multiply the problem. Thirdly, I am a little
okay. No, so what you have to do is, you almost reached there. So what you have to do is remember the previous case study. So whereas it is imperative for me as the officer of law to ensure that law is maintained and legal rights are retained, I will also make an effort to engage in a discussion with the stakeholders, that is the father, and try and convince them that this is the legal way of going about it. They may agree, disagree, that's their point of view, but I'll do that. So this is an option of not discussing with them and taking a legal action, or trying to discuss with them. That's where your positive approach will come and you'll score over the others. Okay, I think that's a perfect answer. If there are any other observations in this, you're most welcome. I had so many hands here, all of them gone down. Probably they agreed with the approach adopted by Tanish. I still have Prashant Goel's hand. Prashant, please go ahead.
Sir, just I want to add one thing. Structure is being done by the others. Sir, basically honor killing is a social problem, and it is very good situation when the legal side and the social side work in tandem with each other. So here as a short term, we will provide the protection and we will also respect the right to marriage. But on a long term, we need, as an SP, I have to bring the people together so that we can find a solution to this social problem as a long term solution, so that again, the same couple or any other couple don't face the situation.
Excellent. Excellent. So I think if you all give jointly exam, you will get about 80% marks, but unfortunately you will be giving it separately. So each one of you will have to imbibe that. That's why these sessions are important for you to understand. And even at the cost of repetition, let me tell you, such approach will not merely help in ethics paper. If you know how you can present your points of view logically, it will help you through and through. Some of you may qualify. I mean, as I said, some of those that are present today, I have already given the written exam, they may qualify for the interview. So when you speak towards the answer to the board, if you present your case, sir, the SP, this case study may be read out. And he'll ask, as SP, what will you do? You'll say, sir, SP has these many options. The first one has this problem, the second has this, third, I'll do this, but I'll not merely push the law. I'll try and convince the stakeholders into believing what I think is right, and try and convince them, and also take a long-term view, as just now pointed out by Prashant, that how do we find a long-term solution? Perfect. So it's not merely a question of answering questions in ethics paper. This is the way to approach answering a question. You know, since I was basically a debater, I used to look at all the issues in this manner, break them into questions and answer them. So today, someone asked me to speak on any topic. If it is not factual in nature, in essay writing, this approach will help. You break it down into questions, as I said the other day, and then answer those questions. When you break them down into questions, instead of writing and then, you know, arranging them logically, you can arrange the questions logically, and answers will automatically be logical. That's the best way. Himanshu, you have your hand up. Any input that you want to give here?
Sir, I have a question because, and I want an answer from you, sir. That in this case study, it was also mentioned that the boy and girl were unemployed, and there was some caste issues. So there are two also social issues, for example, unemployment and casteism. So should we address, how do we address these?
So again, I would, if as an SP, I would like to talk to boy and girl that how you're going to eke out a living. Try and convince them also. Though it is your right to get married, you are adult, you can do that. But think over it before you do that, because there are consequences. So when you say engaging with the stakeholder, does not mean the environmental stakeholder. The principal stakeholders are boy and girl. First, I'll try and convince them this may not be the appropriate, though legally, I will tell them it's your right to get married. I'm nobody to stop you. But think over your future. You are not employed. If you insist, probably you'll marry. I can't stop you from marrying. But think over it, whether it would be advisable for you to do that. I may be able to convince them into, you know, by getting some employment before getting married. Problem solved. So I'm not violating any law here. Or maybe get some NGO to talk to them, get somebody to talk to them. So we have to look at these stakeholders and talk to them. You know, that is something which is that's where ethics comes in, no? Otherwise it's law. Law says do this, don't do this. Khatam. Your questions come here because they are beyond law. No one is going to ask you whether you should do something which is legal or illegal. It's very clear. It's when it is not clear that you have to say or do that. Tanish, you want to add something to it, or is that over?
So I think I agree with you. Also, it is very important that the point that you added, first of all, the principal stakeholders are to be consulted first, and then the remaining stakeholders should come into picture. I mean, I agree with, and it is a very important point that I got today. Thank you.
Yashotej.
Sir, good evening, sir. Sir, I would like to explore a new point here, sir. Here, the point of minister is also involved there. So, can we get some social help so that we can deal with the minister and make him realize the importance of the situation, sir?
You'll have to explain that to
Can
me.
we
How does social help in explaining to the minister? You mean going to the media?
It may be media, sir, or some influential people, and get to talk to them, to the minister, and counsel them regarding that, sir. Because here, even the minister's position, we have to consider.
Certainly not the media, but if you can get somebody to talk to the minister, very good. Do that. Again, in another case study, which we discussed, I think, which is again a part of my book, when that president of the district president of the ruling party wanted to take out a funeral procession, I put him behind the bars. But I got the chief minister to speak to him, and he agreed.
Yes, sir.
So you can get somebody to talk to him. You can get somebody to talk to him, but not the media.
Okay, sir.
Media, it will create further complications. Okay, but yes,
sir.
If you have somebody in confidence of the minister, talk to the minister. No, I
Yes,
think one thing which has come out clearly today is engagement with the stakeholders. That's very important.
Exactly.
Rudrashis, does this all answer your questions about the case study? Or
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
They all answer. Okay. Right. Tanish still has his hand up. You still have to say something, or
no, sir, all good. Thank you.
Okay. So we've taken up 2 case studies and we've run out of an hour. In fact, we are much beyond an hour. I wish Abhishek was here because he had raised a very good case study. Let me see if I have it
He's
here.
here now, sir.
Abhishek, are you there? Abhishek? You are in a cave somewhere, it seems, or you are traveling somewhere. Okay, let me read out the case study that he sent and then we can discuss that. He sent me, chairman of Bharat Missiles Limited was watching a program on TV wherein the Prime Minister was...
Sir, I am Abhilaksh.
Yes, Abhilaksh, yes, please, sorry, Abhilaksh.
Sir, I had...
Abhilaksh, please go ahead. Mention your case study.
Yes, sir. Sir, should I read it out?
You should also get into the habit of paraphrasing what is there. Okay.
Sir, essentially, it is about how you are the chairman of a state-run military technology company of India, of course, which produces weapons and has progressed significantly in the past 2-3 decades. It has come to a point where it is manufacturing state-of-the-art technology. And you are somebody who really wants to take this technology and export it to other nations. However, you're not very sure about how this prospect would be received by the higher ups. Now you receive a call one day by the defense minister and other important functionaries of the Ministry of Defense who tell you that this is precisely what they want to do. This is exactly what they want to do. They want to lift the ban or embargo on exporting Indian military products to other nations, and they are willing to engage with you on this matter. They're willing to invite you to Delhi and discuss further proposals for this. And then, sir, the question sort of takes a different turn and asks the candidate that as an arms exporter of a responsible nation like India, what are the ethical issues involved in arms trade? And the second one is list 5 ethical factors that would influence the decision to sell arms to foreign governments. So now the reason why I personally brought this case study up was that it did not really fit into the paradigm of a conventional ethics question. For instance, this is not something about something happening in a district or some sort of very ground level, grassroots level action being taken. So, sir, I would like to ask you and all the other members of this meeting that how else can we approach this apart from giving a very straightforward sort of humanitarian, international law related answer, that well, we will make sure we don't export it to non-state actors, we'll make sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. So that looks more like a political science, international relations sort of a line of thinking. So I was just wondering how do we integrate that ethical approach? Thank you.
Normally UPSC does not ask, I'm sorry for using this phrase, such questions. I would rate it as stupid being a part of this. I mean, as you rightly said, this could be a part of the international relations question. But if it has to be answered, then it has to be answered in the manner that you are approaching, that any general man would approach, that I would not give it to non-state actors. I will not export it to countries that are inimical to international peace. I will ensure that there's no intermediary involved. All the problems that have been there in Bofors and things like that, all the no's will come in.
Sir.
Beyond it, there is nothing. I mean, I'm surprised at this question. I mean, there is no per se an ethical dilemma here. Why?
Sir.
Because if this decision to export to a particular nation will not be taken by the head of this organization. On export of sensitive materials like this, the decision will have to be political. So at best, your role will be advisory in nature to advise the government or the decision maker that this may or may not be done. In that, what will you say? I will add a few things. That I will not reveal the technology used in manufacture of this equipment so that they don't steal that technology. I will take guarantees from those people who are buying this produce, neither to give it to somebody else, nor pass on the technology to somebody else. I would also see how can there be a long-term arrangement for me to benefit financially. I will also see what is the reciprocal benefit that I can get from that country. So, but these have nothing to do with ethics.
Ethics, right, sir.
These are political decisions, and unfortunately, the question maker doesn't understand what ethics is. I mean, he's put a question here. Ethical questions are such where there are dilemmas involved, where you have to make a choice whether what is right and what is wrong. Here, it is very clearly defined what is right and what is wrong. What is wrong is wrong. So obviously, I will not sell it to a rogue state. I will not sell it to, as you said, the non-state actors and things like that. Okay.
So would it be appropriate to discuss things like, say, I will try to make sure that the facilities or factories in which these arms are being made will be sort of well looked after, or suitable arrangements will be made for those. Sir, would that be an appropriate tangent to go on?
I don't think so, because again, there is no ethical issue involved.
Right, sir.
The only ethical issue involved here is that you will ensure that the quality of products are such that the country's credibility or credentials are not questioned. There again, there is no ethical issue involved in it. Anyone will do that.
Sir.
Okay, let's hear
Himanshu. Question.
Okay, let's see. No, but I think your approach is correct. You write it as if you're writing, a political science answer. Simple.
I think, sir, this question can be tweaked a bit. For example, if we export, suppose, weapons to someone, to maybe an enemy state or slightly enemy state or some state which we are not in good terms, and they want this weapon. And if we export it, we gain some, and we are maybe, suppose, some nation who is not economically such advanced, and maybe if they get some money, they can, say, remove poverty. So maybe it could be tweaked to that.
I can reformulate the question and make it into an ethical one. So I'm not going to that. Right now, we're discussing the question as it is. I can make this question into an ethical issue. Anyone can do that. But the way it is structured here and when you sent it to me, I was wondering what is it doing in the ethics paper here? Because the formulation of the question is not, we are not getting ethical issues out of it. So you go about it in a manner that what is right and wrong in the larger context, say that. And that's how the answer would be. The beauty of such questions is that everyone has to answer that question. It's not that you have to answer and the other chap doesn't have to answer. So when people tell me the question paper was very tough this year, I wonder what is tough in a competition. If it is tough for everyone. If it is easy for everyone. Now, I can understand if one option paper is tough and other is not, then I can understand. But in general studies paper, which is common to everybody, a tough is a tough paper, period. As simple as that. Don't bother about toughness because it will be tough, equally tough for others. Do what you can. Sahil, you have your hand up. You want to say something?
Yes, sir. So one ethical dilemma, though it is not that much of ethical dilemma, what came into mind as soon as I read the case study was the issue of disarmament. I don't know whether it is appropriate to mention it, since it is in ethics point that since we have Article 51 in our constitution, and SDG also promotes peace amongst the nation, and India wants to promote disarmament. So, doing arms trade and versus disarmament, can this be taken as an ethical dilemma over there?
You know, it can't be an ethical dilemma of the head of that production company.
That's true.
It can be an ethical dilemma for the decision maker who's exporting. For him, if he's asked to export to that country, there's no dilemma. He has to do that. As simple as that. There's no illegality in it. You know, let's try and understand when we were discussing the role of district magistrate and those principles. There's an illegality. There is no illegality in it. What is the illegal part of it? And so there's no, and even otherwise, there's no dilemma. Now, suppose I dislike a particular country at an official and a personal level, and the government decides to export to that country. So what will I do? I will try and convince the government, please don't send it there. These are the consequences. That's the best that I can do. Beyond it, I can't say that I'll sell failed products to them and products that I'll give them a missile which will not work. You can't do that. No, you can't.
Right.
Do that.
Right, sir. Thank you.
But I think that's interesting. I would suggest all of you to have a look at the question papers. You know, I have been asking all of you to suggest case studies because what I'm trying to do through discussion of these case studies, not merely to enable you to answer that particular case study. I will never want that to happen. I want you all to start thinking logically and presenting logically. And I think the first case study helped you to understand approaching a question. What are the dimensions of a question? And then I think when it was Tanishq who was outlined the specific manner in which you have to answer the question. Of course, he didn't conclude it as I would have wanted to, but I think he listed out the issues very well. That's how, if you can get into the habit of doing that, then you have a chance of scoring much better than others. You know, all case studies on ethics are common sense, actually. You don't have to study much on that. And then your ability to articulate that common sense in a logical manner. The second part is very important. We don't have that. You know, as some of you were very muddled in your, presentation, jumping from here to there, here to there. It happens. It happened. It used to happen with me. But if you practice, and you don't have to necessarily join me in such sessions here, when you are in free time and taking a walk or something, you pick up a case study and start formulating the logical answers to that question. I have often told you that how's your mind wired? You know, and hopefully all of you will become civil servants. In civil service, I found, people who were toppers failed here. Why? Because they couldn't approach issues logically. To me, this paper is very important, not merely in terms of your value system, but in terms of your approaching issues. Similarly, in essay, how do you approach an issue? So ethics, essay, people who have opted for political science, philosophy, sociology, all these are related. So if you are able to answer in that manner, and the good thing which I had been advocating long ago, that we should reduce the number of optionals, have more common papers so that competition is even. Earlier, we used to have 2 subjects. And I remember in 1 year, at least in my year, out of the top 30 positions, 25 had physics as a subject. Now, that doesn't help because next year they were out. They balanced it and they did it. So my suggestion to you is look at the manner in which question is answered. Don't get too hassled about writing a particular answer. So when we discuss a case study here, I'm not giving you an answer to that particular case study. What we have discussed is the approach to that case study. And I mentioned a few things. Now, before I conclude, before any other question that you have regarding ethics or otherwise, any question that you have before we conclude? Any doubt, question that you have? Dhamini?
Hi, sir. Actually, this is more of a real life scenario that I've noticed, and I was not sure. Suppose if I once I do become a civil servant, how to handle it. For example, in my village, the MG Narega funds, it's actually not utilized in an appropriate manner. There is also a provision where people who are getting their field work done, they can actually that can be done through MG Narega. For example, if they're sowing the seeds or getting a harvest done, that can be done through MG Narega funds, where a part of the daily wages is paid from the government itself. But what is being done here in reality is, suppose it is the 250 rupees wage, it is actually being shared by the person who's employing and the person who's getting employed by just sharing their job cards. But they're actually not coming for the employment there, or nothing is happening. It's just that it's being showed there on paper, and the funds are being collected. But when I look at it from an ethical perspective, it's actually a small amount of money that a daily wage worker is gaining. That is about 150 rupees or 200 rupees. And when I know for a fact that greater amounts of money is being looted at higher levels, is it better to turn a blind eye towards this, or should I actually take some proactive action against this?
Okay, since we are short of time, let me quickly convert it into a case study. What you've told me. Let's convert it into case study and see. Suppose you are posted as the Deputy Development Commissioner in charge of development work in your district. And you get to know that a lot of money that is shown as paid as wages to these people is not being paid in total. Some of it is being siphoned off. Now, what would you do as DDC? What are the options available with you? One option is, since there are bigger crimes happening in Delhi, I would ignore this. That is option number one. Since you mentioned it, otherwise this would not be an option. I'm just mentioning it because you mentioned it. I will just discuss this, and others I'll discuss later on because we'll run out of time. Now, there is a lot of wrong that is happening. Donald Trump did such nasty things, and at the White House, you will stop doing things in India because I can't stop Donald Trump.
No.
Now, I've taken this very extreme example to illustrate that you shouldn't be bothered about issues over which you have no control. You should condemn it. If possible, try and do it. But this is under your control. Just because something is happening elsewhere, you won't do what is in your control. So to me, there is no dilemma here.
But
I'm concerned about what's happening elsewhere. I'm concerned about the big wrongs that are happening in the world, in Delhi and in the state. But since I have control over the work that I have to do, I will try and do. I don't know whether you've read Ethical Dilemmas of Civil Servant. If you haven't read it, you will understand what I'm trying to tell you here.
Yes, sir.
A job of anybody, leave alone civil servant, is to focus on what he can rather than unnecessarily feel hassled about what you can't.
Yes, sir. But actually, my primary issue was because usually the wage regularly they get paid as around 500, 600 rupees, and the MG Narega wages that they get is 250 rupees. So people usually laborers don't prefer taking up the MG Narega jobs. So
no, I'll come to see. I'll come to what other things that you can do. I'm just answering one of your part of the question. There are other parts to this question, and I'll address that. The basic issue that you raised was, since there are bigger wrongs going on elsewhere, should I correct these smaller wrongs? It's like saying, why should I catch a petty thief when there are people running away to London and living in... No, I can't do people running away to London. Can I do anything about it? I'm concerned, but I can't do much about it. But if I have to catch a thief, I'll catch a thief. As simple as that. There is always this logic कि छोटे आप आदमी को पकड़ते हैं, बड़ा आदमी भाग जाता है. अगर मैं बड़े आदमी को पकड़ सकूंगा तो उसको भी पकड़ूंगा. But just because I can't catch the bigger thief, I should not catch the smaller thief. That's the limited question I'm answering. In the next session, make it out into a case study, and then we'll discuss it in the next session. Now, I don't want to push you all to come here to have a discussion. But if you feel benefited, we can have another round of discussion. Because I want this approach to be internalized, not merely in terms of case studies, but in terms of answering any question. As a reader also, if you read anything, first questions read, then answered, the understanding is much easier. Otherwise, you find some articles, very erudite ones, but you don't understand at the end of it, did they likha kya hai? So that is how it is. So I would request all of you to send me your feedback. And in case you feel that you want to discuss some other issues or you want to discuss some more case studies, I can organize another session on this. Okay. So thank you very much. We've spent almost an hour and a half. If there are no other questions or issues that you have in mind, we will wind it up. One last chance for you all to raise any question, issue beyond ethics also, if you have any other issue you want to discuss. Yasho, you have unmuted yourself. Is there Yasho Tej? You want to discuss something?
Yes. No. Sir, regarding this case study, sir, of Manrega, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. I would like to bring a point that here we are looking for better money transfers and all that, so that the stakeholders get the best out of their work.
Okay, Yasho, we will discuss, because this will require a longer discussion. So I'm not starting it here, because if we start, it will require at least 15-20 minutes to discuss. We don't have that much time. So I don't want to discuss this particular case study. You want to raise any other issue? Please.
No, sir.
So I would request you to give your comments directly to me on WhatsApp, so that I can, because I keep a record of it for structuring my future sessions. Okay. Thank you then. Good night. Take care.